Glorytown is a barrio in the town in the city of Cienfuegos, Cuba, southern region of Cuba. And it's the lovely place where I was born and grew up until the age of 14. The book is about the first 10 years of communism. It's a testimonial memoir where I felt compelled to reveal my story of childhood in communism and essentially the story of what happened to our family after Castro came into power. The days where our family had gathered for many years and there had been happiness and great family unity were cut or ended soon after Castro's takeover in 1959. My personal experience from the time that I'm 3.5 years old in 1959 up until 1969 when we finally leave Cuba was a life of a mix between turmoil and security that my family provided for me, but it was a story based upon my personal experiences having to deal with the oppression of being part of the government, being oppressed by conditions that were beyond my control on the part of the government, the Cuban regime. We became dissidents, we became strangers within our own land. And so, in essence, what happened to my Uncle William, who was a business owner and essentially the patriarch of the family, was that his business was taken away and he was imprisoned. There were charges of capital punishment against him for having contributed against the government. And as far as my father was concerned, my father had to go to concentration camps, as basically what it was at the time that we applied for a visa to leave the country. So from that moment on, from the minute that we applied to leave the country, we became strangers in our own land. And the oppression, the harshness of this regime that was intolerant of freedom of expression and opposition of his government became brutal. And in his case, he was taken away to these work camps for years. Shortly after we had applied to leave the country. I think that the essence of the story is based upon the fact that for 40 years I considered telling my story to the world, and I think that anyone that has ever experienced turmoil in their own childhood lives with that, and ultimately in cases such as mine, I became convinced that this story needed to be told simply because violations of human rights continue to exist in this place. They're no different than the time when I was being raised there. And I felt that the story of a family that was able to find love and unity and support in the midst of these difficult times needed to be revealed. In essence, the objective here has been to let the world know precisely what happens in Cuba today from a different perspective. This is a perspective that I don't believe has been told in many years, not from a child's perspective that became a young man and ultimately faced the possibilities of going into the military and having to serve a government that I did not believe in. And so the moral of the story is first and foremost to reveal the human struggle in the midst of this dilemma and to essentially uplift the human spirit of love and support as the family of probably 200 to 300 family members is dismantling right before your own eyes. So at the end of the day, I feel very blessed to be able to have this story told throughout the world, essentially because of the fact that the conditions that existed back in those days continues to exist today. There are violations of human rights that continue to exist today as it happened back in those days. And to me, it's inconceivable that children today can be raised and can be living in the midst of these circumstances, especially living as a free man today, to see how so many of these children and younger generations are so desperate for freedom. And these conditions brought upon by the brutal regime of the Castro brothers, along with their government, oppresses the people and oppresses the human spirit. And in essence, just destroying that which is the most essential in our lives, which is the respect. My publisher is Farrar, Straus Giroux, And this is one of the most prestigious houses in the world. And it's been a remarkable experience. I spent 10 years in the process of putting pen to paper and dealing with emotions that were far beyond my control for a long time. I've had to open up wounds of childhood struggles, yet with the ultimate purpose of being able to tell this particular story. It was a 10-year process. I spent many years writing it, and then ultimately to begin to look for individuals that find the story appealing, and to find an agent and to find a publishing house was beyond my comprehension. I had simply no understanding of it until I met my lovely agent, and ultimately the book being sold to Farrar, Straus Giroux, and having individuals such as Margaret Ferguson, who is the co-publisher and head editor of the Farrar, Straus Giroux Young Readers publishing house, is just amazing. They have been wonderful in working with me. I have had such a delightful experience in having this book finally paid attention to, or this writing. I am undeserving of having this kind of merit. Yet the essence of the story is, I think, what has been compelling, not only to the publishing house, but certainly I think that everyone that has been exposed to my testimony. It is indeed my hope that every young person that is out there, and every father and mother and grandfather can be a better person, have a better understanding of goodness and the goodness of their own personal lives as a result of having read this book.